Don't wait for more money to start. Start with what you have and not wish with what you had. It's important that you graduate, but none of these things are as important as marrying the right person.
I think trust is the biggest barrier people have because they don't trust, and because they don't trust, they don't seek advice.
Smart people learn from their mistakes, and wise people learn from other people's mistakes.
Investing takes time to learn, and there's this emotional interaction that takes place. If you could give your younger self financial advice, what would it be? Welcome to PlanAssist Podcast, where we help people make better financial decisions. And we do it based on 3 core principles: have a plan, be diversified, and seek counsel. And then what we do on this podcast is we interview successful people who are experts in a particular field and start the whole conversation off with, if you could give your younger self financial advice, what would it be? And then we have a conversation around that based on that person's background and experience. Today, I'm super excited to have Joy Joseph join us. She's a seasoned executive leader with deep experience in the financial services industry. Joy has successfully guided organizations through every stage of the talent life cycle and has helped align businesses with kind of strategy and people. She's known to be creative in her approach, and she really focuses on aligning employees with the stakeholders of the business. So that includes the C-suite executives as well as the shareholders. So she comes at this from a commercial mindset, a global perspective, and a passion to make change. So with that, today, I'm super excited to have her come on and have a conversation around helping you make better financial decisions. So welcome, Joy.
Thank you, Tim. So glad to be here.
That's fantastic. Just for everyone to know, I actually worked with Joy back 10 years ago, guys, 10 plus years now, almost 15 years ago. So we've stayed in contact over the years. So it's been fun to kind of stay in contact and see her go global. And she had a big organization over in Europe and all that. So when I started this podcast, I started to put together a list of people that I personally knew that could really help people make better financial decisions. So it makes sense that kind of early on, I have Joy as my guest. Did I miss anything that you wanted to add?
I feel so honored. And I wish more people gave thought to it, and not just in money management, but everything that we do in life, looking back. And
Yes.
we were so lucky to redo what would be changed. So it's great to start with. I'm so glad that you thought of me, and I'm so honored to be able to share that.
No, I'm super excited. But then also, just before I kind of get to the question, I want to kind of set this up. The looking back's fantastic, but this is designed to help us make good decisions going forward, right? So we don't want to overthink. What we did is what we did. So the question is can we learn as investors from other people's experiences? And I think that's what our goal is today. So with that, if you could give your younger self financial advice, what would it be?
I'm going to answer this question. I just want to reiterate for the audiences listening that I have read this quote someplace, and this is, smart people learn from their mistakes, their own mistakes, and wise people learn from other people's mistakes. So I would like to say to be smart and wise simultaneously as you look back in the past, as you live in the present, and as you look towards the future.
That's perfect.
So,
yeah.
So to your question, I've given it thought at a personal level for myself. I have a 7-year-old son, and conversation around money and saving is a regular conversation on a daily basis between him and I. I would probably put it into 4 different categories if I was methodically putting it into bullets. It's a much longer conversation than we have time for. But I would say if I go back 30 years and advise myself, rather than call it, what would it be? And it would be 4 major categories. So here we go. Not in any particular order of priority, just for equal prioritization. 1 would be start early and stay consistent. And what I mean by that is time in the market. You've heard that, I'm sure, beats timing the market. As soon as you have your first paycheck. Basically, invest in yourself first before you go and do anything else. The second, simply put, would be, and I'm sure many people have heard that, is live below your means. And that simply means pay yourself first or save before you spend. And it doesn't matter what you make. It's irrelevant. A percentage, you pay yourself first. The third would be, which a lot of people I've heard in my career, don't wait for more money to start. Start with what you have and not wish with what you had. So again, it doesn't matter what you make, just start with a percentage to start invest and saving. And fourth, which is often people miss, is number one, probably in my book, if I had to prioritize these, is accountability. And I put this caveat around it, is investing is simple, but not easy. So the accountability piece would be the number, which I did not have, and I should have had, and I can go deeper into a little bit personalizing it for myself, is probably very, very important. So again, start early and stay consistent. Live below your means. Don't wait for more money to start. And accountability. I would probably put into these four categories too.
And so let me just follow up on a couple of those and add some commentary or comment to it. I wrote a book called PlanAssist, and it's around kind of have a plan, be diversified, seek counsel. And when I start talking about PlanAssist, one of the things that I did as I did research is I looked at people who were really successful, and almost no exception to the rule is they started early. But the starting early, I think people miss the benefit of starting early. And what I mean by that is everyone will tell you, if you start with $100, it'll turn into $1 million over time if you do it over time. Oh, that's good. But here's the piece that I find the most important about starting early. Investing takes time to learn, and there's this emotional interaction that takes place. So like as a financial advisor, the hardest client, by a multiple of 10, is the client who inherits a huge amount of money or gets a large financial sum of money and has never invested in their lives. That person is not emotionally trained, is the best way to word it, to invest that money and kind of get through it, because they take their investments and put them into dollars. Like if you have a decent sized portfolio, we'll lose a car every week, right? Or make a car, right? But we don't convert them. If you start early, 10,000, then 100,000, then, over time you get used to kind of those market fluctuations and you disconnect your emotions, your daily emotions from the market emotions. Do you find that to be true or not?
I find it to be true. And I think the first one I said, start early and stay consistent, it's not just about starting early. It's what you just said, and then some. And it's also connected to the accountability piece.
That's right.
So when I say accountability, I think it's very important to have, and I'm not a financial advisor, but I'm going to advocate for all the financial advisors out there. I have one, even though I was one, even though I grew up in the business, I have one. Here's why, a couple of reasons I would say. First of all, to the point you said, especially your younger self, I'm giving advice to my younger self. Now I know that delayed gratification is unnatural as human beings. We live in a society where immediate gratification is what we're taught from a very young age. I use my 7-year-old. If the other day he was doing his math homework and it was an add something, and he looks at Alexa and says, Alexa, what is 7 plus 7, whatever he was. And I'm like, no, you have to do that. He's just used to that. If he wants to play a song, he just selects that. Can I play the song for him? So it is unnatural delayed gratification, and it is becoming, based on social media and technology around it, it is becoming even more and more is becoming unnatural. The second thing I would say is discipline is hard. It's just hard as human beings. The discipline of whether it's working out or weight loss or eating right or investing or whatever, it's just hard. The third thing I would say, emotions do get in the way. It's not just a title. It's not just something we read in the book. If you look at it in the way, and I use again my son's example, when he comes home and he wants something really, really bad, deep down I know he should not have yet another whatever that is. A T-shirt with a Rangers logo on it, or a Devils logo on it, or he's an Eagles fan, another Eagles hat. But I want to see him happy, so I want to do it from him. So it takes self-discipline to do that. And then the fourth thing I would say is the lifestyle pressures, the cousin, the neighbors, what they are doing, and therefore we need to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak. And I think being really mindful of that and having that accountability partner in a financial advisor is just so critical to remind us when any one of these things get in the way, to say, but you remember your ultimate goal is to buy a house or retire there, or to help you keep an eye on the goal and never get lost in the moment, which generally is ruled by all these other factors, whether it's emotion, whether it's lifestyle pressures, whether it's our inability to deal with discipline and stay disciplined, or whether it's just We know. I know now. I didn't. My younger self didn't know that delayed gratification is unnatural thing. So we have to put a lot of force and energy into it to go against it.
And and then everything you just said becomes more complicated if you're married, right? Because now you
Right.
have it's not two times as hard, it's now five times as hard, right? Because now you have to keep your partner kind of going down the same path. And that's why having a plan is so important. And when I talk about a plan, those of you who listen to this podcast know I'm not talking about some 45-page PDF document that you put everything in and you drop in a drawer and don't look at again. I'm talking about this. Some plans might only be for the next 6 months. Here's the three things I'm going to get accomplished. I'm going to update my will. I'm going to increase my 401k contributions, and I'm going to pay off this particular credit card. That's a plan.
Yeah, that's right. And accountability to that plan with honesty is you need somebody, that
That's
person.
right. Exactly.
And I think it's true. And just on that one topic that you mentioned, having your partner, right? So I talk a lot to the young women out of college, like what their careers are, what they should think about. And one of my number one topics, amongst other things, is yes, it's important what grades you got. Yes, it's important what school you got. It's important your first job. It's important that you graduate. But none of these things are as important as marrying the right person, your partner. That changes you. So marry the right person. So what does the right person mean? And number one, outside of it's very important to be aligned on values on the macro things. Don't worry about the micro things. Micro would be they like Greek food and you like Mexican food or Italian food.
Exactly.
Macro would be you're aligned towards the attitude towards money. You're aligned what your life looks like 30 years from now. You're aligned how, if you're going to have children, you're aligned how you treat your family and how you raise your children. Those are the have that conversation. And anybody who is not willing to have the money related conversation is not the right person for you. And you have to be on the same page. It's very difficult to be with somebody if one is a saver and the other one is a spender. It just doesn't work long term.
I can't agree more. I'll sit down periodically with a young 20 something and they'll say, what do you think the most important thing you can do? And before I get into the whole buy these stocks and get investing, I'm like, there's really three things that if you want to be really financially successful is don't get divorced. So marry the right person, right? Get some kind of certification. It doesn't mean a college degree, but be a plumber, be an electrician, be a truck driver, but certifications really matter. I mean, in a career, they mattered 10 years ago, but they probably matter more today than ever before. As someone who does training, people that are certified do get certain level of discussion and conversation. And then lastly is don't drink and do drugs. Okay. If you do those three things, you're going to wake up probably really wealthy. And when you're 60 years old, I mean, it's crazy how kind of simple, but how hard it is.
Even I would say is about marrying the right person, being with the right person. Even if you don't get divorced, you stay together for whatever reason. You're not really together because you're not aligned in your goal.
No, that's right. Exactly.
Living together and in the same house. So I say those external pressures will derail you. And even more so, and it's very important when you select the advisor, let's say it's your accountability partner, make sure your partner is aligned with that. Make sure they don't have any hesitancy when you select it. So select one, but make sure you're both on the same page. Because that person's number one job is not to time the market for you. They'll give you advice, but their number one goal is to keep you accountable to the goals that you set in the way that you said you're going to reach that. And they're going to be right there taking emotions, all that noise that comes with it out of it.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. As a financial advisor interviewing, I'll sit down with clients that are interviewing advisors. And I really recommend when I sit down with someone relatively new, I'm like, you need to sit down with 3 advisors. I said, because every advisor will have a different kind of personality and a different focus. So like, I'm not a good advisor for someone who's paying attention to cable bills and needs to get out of debt. I'm just not that person, right? I'm more that person who kind of knows what they want to do and with some experience that just wants to kind of keep things organized and in line. but that's not enough for some clients, right? I mean, and that's more than enough for other clients. So I kind of know where I fit in, and I really try to help clients kind of identify what's the kind of advisor and personality are you looking for. So let's shift. Those were really good. I really appreciate those were 4 really good points to start the conversation off with. Let's go to the second question, and that is kind of you've done HR and training for major financial institutions. So you've worked with hundreds and hundreds of financial advisors, not only in America, but in Europe. So when you had that training organization over in Europe, so how did that shape your kind of views on money and your experience? Because you kind of saw everything. You heard all the horror stories. You saw advisors who probably were more criminals than financial advisors. And you saw advisors who were really, really committed, right? I mean,
it again, like in any other profession.
no,
So,
right, exactly.
so first I would say to you, what surprised me in these global roles, and specifically in the wealth management space, is how similar we are when it comes to humanity. And I'll just use an example. A mother, where I am in the New York tri-state area here in northern New Jersey, wants the same thing for her son as a mother in a village in Africa. It's just so, I mean, I never thought about it, but I know the political landscape and I know the noise in the world as it, but it just never, we are more similar as human beings than not. And often we don't talk enough about it. We probably should. So when it comes to wealth management, perhaps the scale is different. Perhaps the currency is different. Perhaps the outlook is different. But we want the same things for our children, for our futures, for our retirement, if there is such a thing in certain ways. So that's probably has surprised me that I know now, but in my younger self, 10, 20 years ago, didn't know that. I never thought about it. The thing that I would say is financial advisors are incredible people. And I'm not saying that because you're on the call in general, I would say. They often tell me, Joey, I need to be better at this. And they are just incredible communicators. And I want to hire them and I train them. And they basically go in front of a client, say, can't promise you anything. The markets are going to go up and down. We don't control it. I can redo research, but I still think you should give me your life savings and work with me, and I am going to be here to help you. Even though
exactly.
So I think they're incredible communicators, and they could really, the ones that are really committed, work with it. But underlying all of this boils down to one thing, and that is trust. So now, many of your listeners are going to say, so Joy, trust. So how do I know? How do I trust one? How do I know? How do you define trust? So I don't have there are lots of books written about, I don't have a complicated definition of trust. I have a very simple one. And the simple one is, does this person, if I think about who I trusted the most, my father, my mother, right? And even my pastor, my friends, and there's one common thread in this, in the trust equation. Every one of them I knew had my interest before their own, and my best interest that they could think of based on their experiences, their wisdom, and their ecosystem. It's no different than when you select or work with an advisor. So when I say to clients, number one thing is find one that you could trust, but how do I know one you trust? You have to talk to them, and you have to know that they have your best interest. Even when you don't like it, they're going to tell you what they see is right for you. Even when you say, that didn't sit well with me, that was too much, they still are your trusted financial because they told you what they see. And that's what you want. Kind of like when a parent tells you, no, you're not going to do that. So
exactly.
if you know that, right? Kind of like your best friend telling you, that wasn't nice. I mean, you were just being a jerk. I would say in the same category should be that your relationship. So to the larger organizations, I say hire on this attitude. When I was part of the hiring team and I had my own as a branch manager, as a regional manager, I called it a grandma test. My grandmother, at the time since then she's passed away, her name was Alice, immigrant from another country, didn't speak English very well. And I always used to say that picture in my region. If my grandma Alice, Granny Alice, was sitting in front of this person and giving her life savings, would this person be the right person for her? Would I trust this person? This is as a hiring as a regional manager, as a branch manager, I used to think. So it goes down to attitude. It comes down to attitude. It comes All the other things, how to sell something, how to look at the market, all the technical skills we can teach. But the attitude, I can only refine it. As a learning professional, I cannot teach. You have to come with that attitude of service, attitude of helping people, and finding a lot of grace and humility and yourself in it. I think that's so important in building that. Yes, sometimes you make it get wrong. I mean, yeah, we have financial advisors that are greedy. It's all about money to them. And
we're gonna spend just a few minutes on this because I actually spent a lot of energy and time on the seeking counsel. And some people don't like the word seeking counsel. I get in debates. They're like, it should be advice, should be whatever. I'm like, whatever, call it whatever you want. But basically, seeking counsel is understanding best case, worst case scenario, right? It's Charlie Munger's invert everything. So when we go into an investment and look at any kind of an investment, because that's what we're actually talking about, but it actually applies to life, is we need to understand what the best case is, which is always what we want to think about. But then we need to invert it and say, well, what's worst case? So what kind of happens there? And then the conversations we have around that, the seeking counsel, our financial advisors, ChatGPT, calling 800 numbers, calling friends, all those are really good to help us understand and come to some conclusion on best case, worst case scenario. But I find that people who are super successful are really, really good at that. Okay. And again, they don't even know it. It's not like they won't tell you how they do it. It's just if you've been around someone who's been successful, you just kind of watch them naturally do it. Okay. And the bigger the financial decision is, the more they'll reach out. And then lastly, I'm going to kind of kick on this and then I'll pass it back to you, is there's two kinds of advice that people early on need to learn. So if you're listening to this, it's really important that you understand this because this is where trust comes in. I think trust is the biggest barrier people have because they don't trust. And because they don't trust, they don't seek advice. Okay. And so then they do nothing, right? Which is still doing something. So it's your friend with the 401k, right? I don't trust those 401ks. Then you don't do it. 10 years later, you're like, well, you should have 400 or 500 grand in a 401k and you have nothing because you didn't trust. That means you didn't do the research and advice on that. And then I'm going to hit on one last note is remember when you're seeking counsel and getting input from people, which means you have to at some point figure out a way to trust. Okay. So you have to figure out how do you build that trust, people that you trust. And there's two kinds of counsel. There's formal counsel and there's informal counsel. And those are two very, very good input points, but it's important to understand the difference. So formal counsel is paid for advice. I go to an attorney, I say, I need a will. That attorney will have a tendency to have no flashy, there'll be no excitement. It'll be, here's the facts, here's what you need to do. Sit down with a financial advisor, sit down with me at a cookout, and we'll have a fun conversation about buying a stock or selling a stock or what I think about the market. Sit down with me as a client where you're paying me, very different conversation, right? Because now I'm in a formal role where I'm managing the whole picture. We're not just having a conversation about a stock, right? So with that, I'll just kind of stop there and see kind of what your views. But I do think you hit on, I would bet the single biggest challenge of someone's financial success is trust. They've got to figure out how to build a process that allows them to trust.
I think it's an interesting conversation because the same people, and I'll put myself in that category, I put it as, we date somebody for a year or two, and then we put our whole life in there, and there's a form of trust that develops, right? I've had babysitters just leave. My son, by far, is my most important human being thing ever I've ever had, right? Yet I trust babysitters, I trust schools, I trust teachers, and
That's
so forth.
right.
I would say don't let the word trust or the feeling trust be an objection to starting the process. Whatever it is, start small. If it takes some time to trust, that's okay. Start small. If it takes more than 1, 2, 3 conversations with a person to start, that's okay. It is. I don't know of any scenario where trust is built instantaneously. Unless we're born into a family, we trust our parents because they told us something and we believe it. But I would say it's okay. Start small before you boil the ocean. Go ahead, start with a petri dish and practice and trust this person and work with this person. But don't let this word be scary and paralyze you to doing nothing. Because doing nothing is the enemy of doing something small, which will turn into something bigger. So my advice to everybody is we send our kids to colleges and we trust the colleges. Sometimes we visit the colleges once or twice, maybe 3 times, and we send them there and with at a young, ripe age of 18. So I would just say, have an open mind and start small. It's okay. And have a second meeting. Don't be afraid to ask a second meeting or a third meeting or a fourth meeting, whatever it takes.
And don't assume that everyone, you've got to go through what you just said. You've got to go through the process of trust and whatever number of questions or you need to go through, but doing nothing with your investments and your finances is doing something. And that's the piece I think most people learn. So they just keep putting off getting a budget. What you talked about, living within your means. They really put off those 4 things that you talked about. Getting started, I just don't trust. They living within your means, they don't do that. I mean, accountability, it's I don't trust that person. I'm not going to put that person in my accountability. I mean, I think that's probably one of the biggest kind of points, if I was going to kind of highlight this podcast, is you've got to trust somebody, and that's kind of on you to build a way to get enough trust to move forward. So if you have no trust and find yourself doing nothing, then you've got to come up with some strategy to get around that.
I 100% agree. I mean, we trust so much. I mean, we get on a plane. Pilots we've never met.
Yeah, right.
So don't let this be a hurdle that you put yourself in your own way to be successful financially.
No, and that because they'll hear like, oh, I heard Joe got ripped off. Okay, but you can still put together pieces to make sure that doesn't happen, like have your money at a third party. There's ways around that if you'll actually do the research and ask the question. So I'm going to finish on one last question. So I just want to kind of highlight, do you have anything left on the trust? And then I'm going to ask you, I'm going to go to the next subject on trust. But I do think that was a really important conversation for a lot of people, because I can't tell you how many people I bump into that just haven't gotten good at seeking counsel, which is the foundation to building trust.
I just see so many examples of this on a daily basis that we practice. But like I said, do I really trust every single person in my son's school? The answer is no. And yeah, I don't even know every single person. But guess what? I send it to him. Do I really trust every airline pilot? I don't even know them. How could I trust them? But I still get on a plane.
Right.
So I just think people put that objection there. But what I would say, it's not about trusting someone. I think what's in the way is their own lingering hurdles, trusting themselves to take the first step. And when I talk about trusting, I said, have enough faith and trust in yourself that you could take the first step. And sometimes the first step has sub-steps like interviewing a financial advisor, researching online, looking them up, maybe even asking for a reference, maybe even going to a seminar and listening to one. Just doing that portion of the work would make it easy, and trust in yourself that you're making the right, and then find an accountability partner to
exactly. And then before I go on to the next one, I just want to hit, even if you don't have a financial, I think you should. I agree with Joy. I'm a financial advisor, so I'm super biased about that. But even if you don't have a financial advisor, you still have 2 or 3 things you can do, get started on, back to getting started, that can actually start building wealth without a financial advisor, like maxing out your 401k, doing IRA contributions and putting them into a target fund. Call Vanguard, call Schwab. I mean, there are a lot of things you can do pre-hiring a financial advisor and building. And then when you hire a financial advisor, it's easier to trust because your knowledge, you know enough to know if this financial advisor is telling you what you want to hear or just telling you so he can sell you something, right? Or she can sell you something.
Yeah, just one comment on that. We're having a financial. There's things people can do to create in their own home a culture, a routine, an ecosystem that sort of fuels and feeds this concept of starting early and staying consistent. So, for example, if you give your 10-year-old an allowance, and let's say it's $10 a week, I'm making that up. What's the 10-year-old going to do with $10? Make them put 5 in a savings money market account, $5, and only give them $5 to spend. as an example. So they see that you do that in your family, and from a very early age, they're learning the discipline of paying themselves first.
Yeah,
So when
I
they
agree.
do get to savings, I have a brother who has raised two very successful kids, and he would even take it a step further. He would take $3 out of the 10 when my niece was 10. By the way, she just graduated from medical school and is doing her residency now at the age of 23. Very proud of her. He would take $3 and say, well, that's gone to taxes out of the 10 that he would give, and now you have 7 left. And he would take half of that and say, that's the savings.
Oh, that's
This
good.
is what you have left to work with. And she's like, I need to do extra chores. I need to do this so that we are lucky with it. So create that early. Looking back on my own life, we did not have that. I did in our household, but I'm doing that with my son now. And I'm just like, your $2, he gets $2 allowance every week for turning off the lights and all of that other little chores that he has around the house at nighttime. But I just take half and we put it in a piggy bank. And when the piggy bank is big enough, then we both walk to the bank and we put it into a savings account. He sees that and he knows that's part of his college fund. And I personally experienced if we go out for ice cream, let's go out for ice cream. And I'll say, no, we're going to use your money. And he's like, no, we have ice cream. Too much sugar is bad. We don't, but if I'm spending it, he's like, yeah, let's go out for ice cream. So it's teaching him, yes, but it also keeps something at the forefront of my mind that I need to continuously, even now, stay on the path of saving and investing and not just give in to immediate gratification. Even if that means seeing my son very happy and smiling and hyper with sugar of ice cream.
That's good. All right. So on the last discussion that I want to kind of touch on, so kind of moving on from which we've covered a lot of stuff. So this has been fantastic. So this last one is one of the things that you said back when we worked together 15 years ago, but I also see it in your current LinkedIn posts, et cetera, is business is people. And so I want to just expand on that just a little bit, because in today's world, it kind of hits on our last conversation is trust. People have a tendency to be not at all knowledgeable about business, though they may work for a company. And so I find it just sad and shocking how people will get to be 50 or 60 years old and then be surprised that they get laid off, right? I'm like, well, if you were looking at the business and separated your personal piece from it, it probably wouldn't have been a surprise, right? And now, again, I don't want to underestimate or I'm oversimplifying that comment because that's a big deal. But can you just spend a few minutes on that and kind of your belief?
Yes, I could tell you stories for stories, and there are not of an enterprise. There are not
Exactly.
many people come to me and ask me about it. So just recently, one of my friends came and she said, hey, I just retired and I need to take minimum distribution. I'm going to be 70 now. Should I leave money in my 401k from a company, or should I move it into this IRA thing, or literally IRA thing, or what should I do? And how much? And when I take it out, what should I do with it? I don't need it. It's just a fascinating conversation, and it really there's no right answer. There's no wrong answer. You simply have to take it. You could spend it, you could save it, you could give it away. I mean, it's different answer for everybody. I don't have this, so you have to sit down and explain what it is. The same thing. One of my friends just turned 50 and she calls me up. She goes, Joy, I'm 50 and I'm going to be, I guess, retiring in 15 years. So I was thinking I should start putting money away for retirement. And I'm like, and what have you been doing for the last 30 years, 20 years?
Right.
She never thought about it. And I'm like, I'm always fascinated about that retirement is coming. Whether you think about it or not, it's irrelevant. Whether you're working or not, it's coming. The time is coming when you would have to retire. Some early, some later. It depends on our health, depends on a lot of things. And I would say to everybody, start thinking early and start educating yourself on this. There is no excuse in this day and age that you don't educate yourself on the basics.
So and I don't mean to interrupt, but I want to kind of hit on this. So when you talk about business as people, do you mean that more like we as people are running a business? So we have to manage our household as a business, and we have to think about retirement, our balance sheets, our income statement as we get
Yeah.
into
Yeah,
retirement.
I
Is
mean,
that what
my
you're is
house,
that what you're kind of talking about?
it's not easy. It's not easy for not everybody's business oriented. Some people lead with business, other people lead with emotions, other people lead with other things, family or whatever it is in front of them. Some people are very long term thinkers. Some other people are medium term thinkers. Other people just respond to what's in front of them. I understand. There's also all I would say is be aware of all the options and then take your next step, not just react to what you know or what you're aware. It does thing what I have found in life, it does depend on every time I talk to people, I always ask them one key question. So what was money like growing up? And it tells me so much about the individual, where they grew up, who they grew up, if the money was tight and how they saw their parents manage, if they were being raised in a family of a single parent and how this was mentioned, if money was openly talked about or if money was not talked about, if having debt was a regular thing and openly talked about and discussed, if it was something to flee from, we don't want any debt. So all of that shapes us. What I'm trying to articulate here is in this day and age, regardless of where you started, perhaps not minimizing the history, but it's more important where you're going. So there's no wrong answer to that. Learn from what you started. And if you want something different in your life, you have to simply do something different. What that something different is, you could research. Certainly, I'm big on an accountability partner. I know you said you don't have to have a financial advisor. I recommend to people you should. Even if it's online, you call up Vanguard and they give you an advisor on the phone. You don't have to go to meet
No,
one.
correct. I agree with that 100%.
Give us, get somebody who could give you information and then you have the ability to research it and look deeper into it. I could use my own example. I
And
think
someone who's not biased, right? I mean, it's so crazy. Like one of the things that I do about getting advice from clients, I also help people with Medicare because I really believe as people getting to retirement, it's health and wealth. Those are kind of the two kind of top line concerns. And I can't tell you how many of my Medicare clients will call me up and say, "Hey, I was at a cookout. My neighbor said I need this plan." I'm like, well, your neighbor doesn't know anything about you. Your neighbor's selling you their plan, not the plan you're on, right? And it kind of goes to your point, getting advice and kind of being clear on kind of where you want to go. It goes back to have a plan. I mean, I know that people that's not a good
I think
word for some
give the
people, but
audience my own journey here, getting a bit personal. You know this. So I'm a solo parent, meaning my son is I don't have a partner in raising him. And the challenges that a solo parent has is very different from a single parent who may get financial support from another partner, or parents who are together.
that's right.
100%, or parents who are living in the same household but are not aligned. There are very different challenges in this. So I have this rule, perhaps some tough rule, but in each one of these areas, I have accountability partners. So these are my three rules. One, I don't take advice from neighbors, friends, extended family members on my faith, on my morals, on my values. That's mine and only mine. I only talk to them about these things, either to my parents or my two brothers. That's it. They're my advisors. Two, I don't take advice when it comes. You will never hear me call up a friend and say, "What should I do with my 401k?" Versus, no. I have a financial advisor, a very good one, and I talk to him. His name is David. David's been my financial advisor, I don't even know, for the last 20 years with UBS. And that's who I pick up the phone and call. And he always gives me good advice. Perhaps I don't like it in the moment because I want to do that, but he always gives me good advice and do X versus Z. And the third one is I don't take advice on how to raise my son. I incorporate my morals and values. You'll never hear me going to some stranger and say, "Oh, your kids turned out really good. What did you do?" Every child is different. Every situation is different. Every environment is different. So these are my three principles. And I'm being very personal here on this podcast. I know it's going to a lot of people. Whatever your goals are, they're yours. And for that, for raising my son, I get advice, obviously, from my immediate family, which is my two brothers. And also, I am raising my son in a very, very good church, and I talk to the minister. I do talk for his education list to his teacher, and that's it. Anything further than that, I don't go there. And I just think whatever is your scenario, putting that boundaries around it is great, but always making sure having that accountability partner. Within that boundary, I never go to my financial advisor, who has raised two wonderful boys, his kids are grown, asking him how to give advice about raising my son. And I never go to my brothers asking advice on how to invest money. I just never do that. I have those boundaries within the boundaries, and each one of them has allowed me to create a special relationship, a unique relationship with that advisor in my life.
So I want to kind of finish this and summarize what she just said. So if you're listening to this, she just summarized everything we've talked about for the last hour, and it's really trust. So the way that Joy builds trust, and you correct me if I'm wrong, is not they're just asking 50 different people, but you've identified who you trust in a particular area, built boundaries, clear lines that say, this person I'm going to take input from, this person I don't care. It's fine if they say it, but it's not weighed into my life. It doesn't cause stress in my life if someone says do this and I don't do it. And this is a financial podcast, so it comes back to the same thing has to happen in your financial life, right? I mean, like one of the people that I knew really well, and he was worth many $million. He was really focused on how he made his money. And then when people came to him and said, here's a really good investment, he's like, that might be, but here's how I make my money. And he didn't have that guilt or fear or I could have done this and made money here, or he identified his boundaries using your words. And then those became kind of his guiding principles as he went through and lived his life. And he had lived a very successful life, both from a family and from a financial perspective, but also he just wasn't stressed about a lot of stuff because he was really clear on kind of what he was doing. And it wasn't like everything was perfect. One of my things I just want to kind of hit on is I have a good friend who is in a different business, and he constantly will tell me that he does work outside, and we'll have a conversation. And he'll say, Tim, you don't do anything. You just go to work and push computers. I have to go outside and work. I start laughing. I'm like, you couldn't do my job for 3 hours. I said, because your life is so black and white. When he goes to work, it's right, wrong. Where in the financial services world, everything's kind of blurred, right? I mean, there's not a yes or no.
Black and white is very like 1% and other.
Yeah, no. And to your point, when you sit down with clients, it's very important that I understand everyone is very, very different. I try to help people that'll listen to like these 1-800 numbers or these radio shows, these financial gurus. I'm like, those are very good general advice, but almost worthless from a specific advice.
I would say if you could listen, my guidance is you could listen to all these people. Just don't take action based on those advice without talking to your personal.
That then looks at you personally. Exactly. I couldn't agree more. So anyways, I really appreciate this. We're bouncing past an hour. So I want to kind of just sum it up with what is your kind of philosophy on success? So we'll leave it at that. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on and spending an hour with us and kind of going through this. This has been fantastic.
This is a state of mind. So my personal philosophy, I've thought a lot about it, and it has changed over time. Initially, when I got into the work, I wanted to climb the ladder, and I wanted to take on more work, and I wanted to be visible, and I wanted to make a ton of money, all of the things that young people do. I wanted to travel. Right. But now as I am getting older, I say that a bit tongue in cheek, I think about if I have three really main things. One, I really focus on mine and my son's health. That's number one. I spare no time, I spare no money when it comes to our health, whatever it's needed. Two is I want to give him, in our case, his biggest inheritance is his education. I want to give him the best education that I can afford for him. And I mean schools, I mean well-rounded. I mean sports, I mean well-rounded education where he becomes the whole.
It's not just a degree, it's education, life.
His morals, values, his faith.
That includes your travels to Europe. That includes all that's education. Going to
two. And the third thing for me personally is, what is really big for me is in my old age, really old age, I don't know how I'm going to leave this earth, but I don't want to be a financial burden on myself. Whether it's 2 days in a nursing home or 20 years in a nursing home, or whether I need help at home or whatever it is. And if after these three things, I expect him to come visit me. I expect him to check up on me. I expect him to not forget my birthday. I expect him to call me and on a regular basis have dinner with me, but not be a financial burden on him in my last days, in my last years. If I die with $1 in the bank, if I accomplish all these things, I would be considering myself a very wealthy man.
Yeah.
And that's for me, for our family. Everything else is just icing on the cake if I get or not get. But if just getting that accomplished, one of the main things I drill in my son is there is going to be no trust fund. There is no matter how rich I get, if I won the lottery tomorrow, your biggest inheritance is your education. These are the building blocks to build a cathedral, a hut, a mansion, whatever you want to build in your life, whatever it looks like. Use marble, use bricks, use whatever I don't know the building materials, but that's what you have. It's up to you to take it to the next level. And for me, I just don't want to be a financial burden. That's it. I don't really worry about what I need for him, how much wealth I leave in the. I don't think about that or worry about that.
That's awesome. That is a great place to leave this. So I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on, Joy, and spending an hour plus with us on this particular session of the podcast. So again, PlanAssist is designed to help you make better financial decisions built around three core principles: have a plan, be diversified, and seek counsel. So with that, have a great day and thanks for joining.
Thank you, Tim, for having me.